Ladies and gentlemen, would you all stand and help me to say thank you for your service to General Hawk Carlisle. Okay, Hawk, let's see how you follow that. So our first speaker today is the Commander of Air Combat Command at Langley Air Force Base. As the commander, he is responsible for organizing, training, equipping, and maintaining combat-ready forces for rapid deployment and employment while ensuring strategic and air defense forces are ready to meet the challenges of peacetime and air sovereignty and wartime defense. Air Combat Command provides conventional and information warfare forces to all unified commands to ensure air, space, and information superiority for warfighters and national decision makers. ACC is also used to assist national agencies with intelligence, surveillance, and crisis response capabilities. Each of you should have a full copy of General Carlisle's bio. We're very pleased to have him speak with us today. I will now turn the podium over to General Hawk Carlisle.
I can't believe you did that. Yeah, how do you follow that? So I really was pretty chunky for a long time in my life, wasn't I? God, that was the pictures of the Fat Hawk there. I was kind of going, man. Obviously, this is a tough thing, and Jillian will reap the rewards. There's nothing I can do about it. She's going to... Anyway, yeah, I don't know how to follow that. I will say, though, if you give me just a second, so I'm an emotional guy. So as most folks know, I got a week left in the Air Force. So I'll try to get through this in this one statement that I'll start with. Next Friday, it'll be, I mean, I know it's not going to be easy for me, but the gratitude ought to go the other way. I mean, you recognize me, Larry, and you showed the pictures of me in my Air Force career, but I will tell you, I'm the benefactor. What I got to do as part of our Air Force for the last 43 years, since I showed up at the Academy in July of '74, has been nothing short of extraordinary. I'm the youngest kid of a cross-country truck driver. And I got the chance to do things and go places and that are just extraordinary. And it's because of the opportunities the Air Force has given me. And I would tell you, for all you young folks out there, you are in for a ride in the greatest organization in the world. And you will get to do it with the greatest people in the world. And I will tell you, people always ask me, they go, why'd you do this for the last 43 years? And it's really pretty simple. And there's two very clear reasons. What we do matters. We make a difference in the world. We change lives. We protect freedom. Our goal in life is to hand our children and our children's children a safer, better world. And every one of us does that. And the second reason is we do it with the greatest people in the world. We just, I sit around with Secretary Disbrow and Chief Goldfein and my other compatriots that we've spent the last couple days talking about the challenges that we face. And folks, these men and women that we have in our Air Force, starting with our Secretary and our Chief, they're the greatest people in the world. And I got the opportunity to be part of that. So the gratitude goes all the other way. Larry, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so I have to speak now. So most people know I'm a C2 zealot. And I have a week left in the Air Force, and I will tell you that there is nothing to me that is more important to talk about than C2 and fusion warfare. So the opportunity to spend a few minutes this morning with you talking about this is going to be, I really am excited that I get to do this. This past January, we had our third annual C2 Summit. We're making progress. We're making some huge gains. One of the greatest things that's happened, obviously our chief has gone and made multi-domain command and control one of his focus areas. He's put a spotlight on it. He's put us all working on it. He has a lead in the Pentagon that's helping us integrate and bring everything together. And I will tell you that that's incredible support for what we're trying to do. And as I go through this and we talk about some of the things that we're looking at and what we're doing in ACC is we're leading this, the C2 enterprise, and we're working with the Chief Goldfein and his lead at the Pentagon. We got a lot of work to do, but we're doing pretty darn good too. And I will tell you, at the end of the day, what our industry partners deliver and what our airmen take into battle in the way of C2 and fusion warfare is absolutely the best in the world by an order of magnitude. And we're going to continue to improve on that. So with that, I will run a quick video, and then we'll get back to it. So if I can get... Got sound?
I have my coffee. I'm ready to watch radar. Where is it? Right.
Ghost Rider, take Angels 10, left 30.
We need air support, and we need it now.
Roll in strike package Bravo on unknown target.
Who's up there? We're Merlin and Maverick and Goose. Great. Maverick and Goose.
Okay, send the Hawks over to Killbox 1 Alpha. It's a danger zone within 300 feet.
Killbox 1 Alpha, 300 feet, danger close.
Friendly's in the area.
7-man team, north of Orange Smoke.
Receive Killbox 1 Alpha. Engage hostage.
Power pad ready, sir. I am captain. Bring the rain. Attack direction west. You're cleared hot. Showing Toby status on right.
1-1, Dark Star status.
This one's for you, Jim.
Hello, boys!
Remember, the Air Force will be with you always.
As you might imagine, the ACC CAG had a really good time putting that together. They all convinced me they had to watch all those movies to make sure they got it exactly right. But think about that. That spanned 50 years and 9 different movies. And it kind of talks to what our command and control challenges that we face in many ways when we look at what we're doing with our command and control in today's environment. So as you look at this slide, many of you folks have probably seen it. And the reason I show this is because it kind of tells you something. One of them is when you first see it, and as you realize it's a J-31 superimposed with an F-35. And when you first look at it, you kind of go, huh, that's a little concerning, right? Because our adversaries are able to imitate us at that level. And, you know, many people look at that and go, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what side's the F-35 and what side's the J-31. But after you get over the part that they imitate us, you start going, you know what? That's kind of good. It means we always lead. Everybody wants to be like us. Every Air Force in the world wants to imitate us and be like us. When I was in Shag's job a couple years ago, I had the chance to go to the PRC, and I got a couple of meetings with General Ma, the head of the PLA Air Force. And he actually told me, he said, we watched what the Americans did in Desert Storm and air war over Serbia, and we knew we had to change. We knew we had to copy you if we were going to be able to do anything. that if the Americans owned everything more than 8 feet off the ground, the war was over. And we have to learn how to copy that. And so when you look at that picture and you get a little bit concerned about it for a few minutes, you have to step back and go, the reason we're the greatest Air Force in the world, it's because of the way we think. It's because of what our industry partners deliver to us and what they give to our young airmen. And then when our young airmen get it, what they're able to do with it is extraordinary. And everybody wants to copy us. And so when you look at that picture and you get a little concerned, you gotta go, yeah, but it's because we're the best in the world. And if you think about where we've come, if you look at what Jay Raymond faces with the on-orbit capability in space, everybody is trying to deny us that domain. It's because they know what we do with it, whether it's PNT or it's COM or it's where we come with sensors, space to surface ISR, what we're doing with all those things. It's because we're so good in space that everybody's trying to compete with us there. That's what the Russians and the Chinese are doing every single day. It's what everybody's trying to do across the board. Where we've come with GPS, where we've led the world in precision and in stealth and in our ability to deliver ordnance and our ability to command and control. And I will tell you, in my belief is, as we move into the future, what's going to keep us ahead of our adversaries is our ability to command and control and do fusion warfare. That's why I'm a C2 zealot. That's why the chief made it one of his focus areas, because that's how we'll stay ahead of our adversaries. If we can continue to know more information better and control, get feedback, put the sensing grid and the control and feedback grid with the effects grid, both kinetic and non-kinetic, and we can stay inside of our adversary's loop, we know more information better, sooner than he does, we will always win, because we know we can deliver on that when we go forward. And our predecessors set us up for success. You can't talk about command and control without talking about folks like General John Jumper and General Buzz Mosley and what they did to put us on this path. And where you look at our C2 today, whether it's an AOC doing a dynamic strike with Strike Eagles in the forward area, getting them the information right on time, or it's a TACP with a Rover Cullen in danger close cast to help the land component in a tight situation, or it's our AWACS or our JSTARS guys doing command and control at the leading edge of the battlefield, how you get all the way back. It's amazing what we've set ourselves up for and what we do every single day. We're the best in the world. I was talking to C.Q. Brown and Tonto Silveria the other night, and they were saying, you know, and I've seen it, everybody's seen it, when one of our joint partners or one of our coalition partners walks into a United States Air Force CAOC, whether it's at Al Udeid or Ramstein or Hickam or Osan, to a person, everyone goes, hey, I want to run the war from here. Because the command and control that we're able to do today is truly, truly extraordinary. And where we've come in our ability to execute that from the reach back all the way forward is truly amazing. And we owe a lot to our predecessors to set us up to where we're at today. But as we look at that, and this is a very simple overview, the OV1, of what our network looks like. And folks, at the end of the day, we did the best we could, but we built a bunch of stovepipe systems, and this is incredibly simplistic compared to what it really looks like. And you see the one SATCOM node to space. We all know what the command and control, whether it's the ground element, the on-orbit, the control, space control, it's an order of magnitude more complicated than that. Same thing on the cyber side. We show the cyber node there, but that's incredibly complicated. And if you look at the node in a congested and contested environment, whether it's space, air, or cyber, and how you command and control that, we've built a bunch of stovepipes. We have a Tower of Babel of our data languages. And we've got to try to figure out, today we wrap them in gateways, we wrap them in different type of algorithms to try to give us the ability to have those interconnect and talk to one another. And we're, again, our predecessors set us up for success when we got here, but we've got to figure out how to break this down and get better at it. We've got to figure out how to break through and get to the fusion part of the warfare. And when you talk about C2, every single thing in the battle space has to be an information collector and an information disseminator. And some of the things we did, like F-22s and F-35s that are going to penetrate contested airspace, that have just a wealth of information, and we haven't figured out how to get that all off board that airplane, those airplanes. We got to get to that. We got to figure out how to break these stovepipes down and bring them together. And when it gets to fusion, it's not correlation. You can't do overlays. If you want to get combat ID, if you want to get weapons quality track, you have to get to fusion, and fusion's hard. It's really hard because it's not just data, and people talk about big data and how you're going to move those things around, and again, that's incredibly important, and we have to be able to do that. But more importantly, when you talk fusion with multiple disparate sensors all over the battle space, you have to get into the mechanics of how those sensors work. You have to get into the algorithms to get fusion so that a piece of data from one sensor in one portion of the battle space can correlate, not just correlate, but fuse with information from another node, from another sensor in the battle space at a level that gives you weapons quality track, that gives you combat ID, that's not just overlays. And that fusion is hard. And that's what we're trying to get to. That's where we're headed with C2 and fusion warfare, is how do we get to that next level? How do we offboard all those things that are in the battle space? Our now Secretary of Defense, former, when he was a JIFFY-COM commander, General Mattis, coined the term command and feedback. We mentioned it the other day when we were down in MacDill. But his point was you can't control the enemy. You can't control the battle space. You can get feedback and command your forces and create effects inside the OODA loop that your adversary is working on. So how do you do that with everything that's in the battle space? How do you build that redundant and resilient network? Going back to our adversaries trying to take that away from us. I guarantee you the thing that they're attacking first and foremost today is our ability to command and control. Whether it's in the cyber realm, whether it's in the space realm, whether it's in the air domain when they're trying to push us and keep us farther away, everything they're trying to do is deny us that command and control, because they know if we stay inside that command and feedback loop, inside of what they do, we will always win those conflicts. So how do we stay in front of them? How do we build that, that C2 infusion that gets us to the next generation? And just like we owned precision for a long time, we owned stealth. When you think about it, we had the first stealth aircraft, F-117, late 70s, early 80s. The first time an adversary got anything close was the J-20 and the PAC-FA or T-50. We'll never own an advantage like that again, in my opinion. But what we can do, and what we are able to do, is the way we think, the way our industry delivers, and the way our airmen take advantage, and our soldiers, sailors, Marine, and Coast Guardsmen, is we take what they give us and we think better. And C2 infusion is where that thinking is going to make the difference in future warfare. Our ability to stay inside of what they're doing at a pace that they can't keep up with, as the chief talks about so eloquently, he talks about that sensing grid, and how do you build that? How do you build fusion in a disparate, interdependent sensors? How do you build a resilient and redundant network that if the enemy attacks one node, you have backup nodes, you have different self-healing ways to get the information between, and you fuse it at a level that gives you weapons quality track as well as combat ID. And then the C2 node that can't be taken down. That you have multiple paths to get information from the forward edge of the battle space to the late edge, of the very forward edge to the back, to the operational level. And then you have the effects grid, whether it's kinetic or non-kinetic. Whatever kind of effect you're trying to create, that you can create it. And you can do that all inside of what the adversary does. And you do it faster than they do, and you do it better than they do. And that's the future of C2 and fusion warfare and how we're going to get there. And we're making progress. We got some work to do. We, as most folks know, and our future, the AOC had a few problems, but we're making huge progress. We're making good work forward on that. We're using our FFRDCs and our national labs and our Air Force Research Lab, as well as I said, folks like MITRE and those folks that are helping us, and Lincoln, MIT Lincoln and Lawrence Livermore. We're making good progress on how to get there. And we're actually, if you look at some of the things we're doing, which we'll go to next, is as we look at some of these things that we're doing to move us down that path, we're actually making good progress. Navy Air Force Tactical Edge communications, there's things we can do with Link 16 that can significantly improve that capability. We can change that waveform and get a lot more capacity. One of the problems is the Link 16 architecture is filling up. With our next generation software-definable radios and with the rework of that waveform, we can get that better. We can get more capacity. We can also do things like apertures or antennas, and we can defeat jamming in different ways. And we're making move and progress towards that. We're also looking at what the Navy's doing with TTNT and NIFCA-CA, and how can we integrate? How can we take advantage of that and still work forward at the leading edge? Digitally aided CAS in the air-ground integration. Great progress to that. You know, we started with the rover. If you think, you know, what the rover has done and what it did in the most recent fights and where we're going and we're moving forward with that, it truly is impressive, and we're making great progress in the rover. In the improved BMC-2 and connectivity, as we look at the platforms and we're growing them, as the chief so eloquently talks about, it's the family of systems. You know, people always try to go, well, what this airplane versus the airplane, that airplane. That's not the way we operate. We force package. We do a family of systems. We create a network and an interdependence and a capability for information to pass and fuse at a level that it's the package, it's the family of systems that create it. And if you look at our BMC-2 way forward, we're making huge progress with respect to where we're going with that as we move forward. And then the fusion piece is the one, and we all know that our industry partners here are working on it real hard. Again, our national labs, DARPA, AFRL, NRL, our FFRDCs are working really hard on that fusion, and we're making serious progress. We really are as we move forward. And we look at where we're going next with the family of systems. As part of that fusion, where does autonomy and semi-autonomy come in? Where does manned-unmanned teaming come in? Where does machine-to-machine work at a faster pace inside the adversary's OODA loop so we can do things faster than they can? And where does man need to be in that loop? And where can it be machine-to-machine? If you look at some of the things that we're doing, and whether it's DIUX or, again, going back to some of the national labs or what some of the industry partners are doing with respect to how do you do that and at what pace can you do that, and that's some of that fusion capability. And we're making great progress as we move towards that. The agile communications and what we're doing in space to protect that, whether it's COM, whether it's PNT, our on-orbit capability as the space people for the United States, our AFSpace and what Jay Raymond is doing with space warfighting concept is truly making a change. You know, in the term that John Hyten and Jay Raymond have coined is fight space. Well, we fight COM, we fight PNT, we fight sensors. We're doing space-to-surface ISR. We're doing all those things at a pace that is going to allow us to continue to stay inside our adversary as we move forward. And then, of course, as part of that, when you talk about big data and how you do that and data lakes and how do you tag that and how do you use that to your best advantage and what does that cloud network look like and how do you make it so that the interdependence in every single node in the battle space can reach all the way forward to all the way back with redundant, resilient, and self-healing networks that allow you to make those changes. And we're making huge progress. I'll tell you that we got a long ways to go, but with the Chief's emphasis on multi-domain command and control, with the things that we're doing at our C2 summits, with what our industry partners are able to deliver to us is the requirements that we're setting that get specific about here's what we need to be able to do. How do we tackle that Tower of Babel that is our data languages now? How did, you know, where we're at is where we're at. So we can't go back and go, you know, why do we have MATL, iFiddle, and Link 16 and TTNT and every one of them different? They don't talk to each other. But we can fix it in the future as we go forward. There's things that we're doing out there where we're taking national technical means and bringing it right forward to the leading edge of the battle space. Things like Talon Thresher and some of those things where we're integrating and we're fusing with an engine that is really exceeding our wildest expectations to get information from beyond anything that you can imagine to the very forward edge of the battle space in the architecture. And, you know, so in the future, when we look at where we're headed, and what I think everyone in here knows, and again, I think you'll see your Air Force move out, our industry partners are helping us drastically, is what does this look like in the future? Everything we do will be how we do command and control, command and feedback, how we integrate the sensing grid with the command, feedback, and control grid with the effects grid, and what do we do as the joint team, as our portion of the joint team of delivering those effects across the battlefield. And I will tell you, I still believe that just like we own GPS and we brought precision forward at a level that nobody else in the world could do, and we brought stealth forward at the range that nobody else could, I believe we'll bring propulsion in our aircraft forward at a way that nobody else can. I believe we'll bring sustainability and maintainability forward like nobody else can. And I think the key to our future success as an Air Force is that C2 infusion that we bring forward at a level that nobody else in the world can, because of the way we think and the way airmen think and the way our industry partners support us in making those things happen as we move forward. And so you can, the hologram, if you just look at some of the ways we're training people today and some of the things we're doing, we're truly on the edge of making some big moves as we go forward. So I did, by the way, from the, when you look at that movie clip, and that covers about 50 years worth of movies, and I think my CAG had to watch 9 separate movies to get all those pieces and put them together. But when you look at that, that's, we're really kind of making, it's kind of the same analogy in that we're bringing all these disparate parts together and we're figuring out how to fuse them at a level in C2 that is truly amazing. I was going to ask you, Chief, though, I think based on watching that we ought to bring a new 3-1 brevity code for clearance to fire. Bring the rain. We can see our ground component jumping on that one. Well, folks, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about to get us set. I will tell you, like I said, I'm a C2 zealot. I think the emphasis that our chief is putting on this as we move forward, what our industry partners are doing to support us and help us as we move forward in this path, where we're headed in leading the world in C2 and fusion warfare. There's some great work going on. Obviously, the chief's team lead up at the Pentagon is doing fantastic work. Killer Quast and the folks at AU are doing some fantastic work. Dash Jameson wrote a paper on fusion warfare that talks about that sensing grid and how we get that information at a level of fidelity and fuse it across the battle space to give the most capability at the very leading edge of the fight. There's some great work going on, and we're making serious progress as we move forward. So. And the fact that we're doing C2 fusion here at AFA as the center theme for this AFA, to me, is exactly the right thing to do and exactly the right time to be doing it. So, Larry, again, I appreciate that start. That was incredibly nice of you. Thank you very much. And let me just say one more time, folks. I'll have a chance to say this again, but there is no greater group of people than our United States Air Force. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, they're great. Our military is the greatest the world has ever seen. And if you look at our active duty, our Guard, our Reserve, our civilians, the United States Air Force, folks, it is the greatest group of people doing a mission that makes a difference in the world today. And if there's anything I would say is, if I can give back, if I can do anything because of the opportunities the Air Force has given me, they're nothing short of extraordinary. Madam Secretary, Chief, it is an honor beyond belief to serve with you, two people that I consider incredibly close friends. And I have all the confidence in our airmen and our Air Force and our leadership that's going to take this Air Force to the next level. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Herb. Got a couple of questions? Sure. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we've got time for a couple of questions. General Carlisle, the first question is, what are the C2 challenges supporting Special Operations Forces involved with supporting an unconventional warfare campaign such as in Syria?
So, Brad Webb, what a great AFSOC commander. Tony Thomas, obviously, Joe Votel out at CENTCOM brings that special capability. So I think and Brad can talk to this very well, I think it's the same challenges. It is that integration across multiple different entities and sensor suites in the forward area. I think that we're doing more integration across a conventional force with the special operations forces than we've ever done in history. I think, the fifth tenet of special operations now is you got to have the conventional force with you to execute. And so that Tower of Babel language challenges that we face, I think with our special operators, they face the same thing. And a lot of the information that we have, I will tell you, we've done some exercise with the folks at Fort Bragg and Raptors out of Langley. Great, special operations team forward is a pretty stealthy capability. F-22, pretty stealthy capability. You tie those two together, you have two stealth platforms that can create an effect in a battle space that is beyond what most people think. So it's basically, in my opinion, it is the same challenges as how you get that Tower of Babel in data languages and links and architecture so that they all speak to each other at a level that's fused and gives the right information at the right time, in the right place with those assets. And I think the good news for us, and Brad, when you talk to him, I think will reinforce this, is we are making great progress. And part of it is what we've done over the last, 20 years, 30 years, is it's become closer and closer and closer, the relationship and the interdependence and the work together between the conventional force and the special operators. And I do believe that from an air perspective, we probably do that better, even better, because we provide so much with respect to both the sensing grid and the effects grid as we move forward. So that's...
Okay. Thanks, Hawk. What is your vision for graduates of the C2 Warrior Advanced Course as we develop operational warfare leaders?
So that's a great question. Big discussion at the last C2 summit about the C2 expertise we need in our Air Force. The good news for our Air Force is I will tell you that every leader at our Air Force, from the chief to every MAGCOM commander to every CNAF commander, will tell you that C2 expertise and how we grow C2 competent, capable airmen is a key to future success. So C2 WAC, which we brought back, the work that the 505th is doing down at Hobart under Gator Gates and some of the progress we're making with respect to that. The discussion is when you bring your C2 expertise airmen, how do you make sure you identify them? How do you give them credit? We'll talk about it, I think, later in a panel with General Roberson from AETC, and I are going to be on a panel where we talk about how do we train airmen in the future. That C2 piece and that fusion warfare piece is a core competency of the United States Air Force. So what we learn in C2 WAC, how we put more of that C2 expertise and competencies back into SAS, how we put it back into professional military education at all levels, whether it's our NCOs and senior NCOs, our junior and mid-grade officers, our senior officers. But I see C2 WAC expertise being highlighted, being brought back. We're going to identify that core expertise. What we kind of came up with at the C2 Summit was, we probably will still grow up in a discipline, whatever that is. The discipline can be a domain, space, cyber, or air. It can be intel. It can be other different areas. But at some point, there'll be a group of those folks that have core expertise in an area, and they will become C2 expertise, C2 WAC, potentially SAS grad, some of those, and then as their career progresses, they'll stay or continue to come back to the C2 enterprise for the Air Force. So that's kind of what we looked at, but it is a competency that we have got to continue to develop in our Air Force.
Okay, great. What is the current state of what used to be called air-sea battle, and how are we building combat connections with the Navy?
Well, that's it's still there. I don't, names really don't matter. But I think the integration you saw at the bottom level there, the integration of Navy Air Force tactical integration at the leading edge. If you look what Shags O'Shaughnessy and PACOM and Harry Harris and Not So Swift are doing out in the Pacific, you look at what Magoo Walters is doing in the same realm with respect to the Med, the integration between the Navy and the Air Force and our ability in an air, maritime, land, air, maritime, surface, and subsurface capability. We are increasing that drastically, going back to stealth platforms, tying F-22 with a huge magazine depth of a submarine, both stealth platforms. You got a sensor aboard an F-22, you got submarine with a large number of TLAMs. Now you get a capability that integrates across the maritime, multi-domain command and control. So it's being expanded. It's kind of inculcated into the Navy and the Air Force in those realms where Air and Maritime are working close together. And I will tell you, in both PACOM and EUCOM and SOUTHCOM and what we're doing with Admiral Tidd down in SOUTHCOM and things like Big Week, the integration between Navy and Air Force to me is at a level that it's never been before.
And one last question. You've had a long and distinguished career. Is there one thing that you can think about or mention that has been your best memory of the Air Force? Other than AFA symposium.
Yeah, that's mine. Calling Larry Spencer my good friend, that's one of them. So, I don't know if I could pick one thing. Get nostalgic in my old age, and I appreciate Secretary Peters being here because, I feel like we're generationally very close. So, if the Secretary's husband was here, that would be the other person that would keep. If Diz Isbro was here, me and Diz and Secretary Peters, we'd all kind of be going, hey, remember when? So, I will tell you, there's been incredible experiences in the friendships and relationships. It's all about the people. It's about the incredible quality, character, the dedication, the discipline of people that we have in our Air Force, from our junior airmen that we bring in and how we grow them and train them, I'll tell you, sitting around the table at the Corona that we just left with Secretary Disbrow and John Goldfein, the Chief Wright, our new Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and what I consider the greatest family and friends that anybody could ever ask for, and the other leaders in the Air Force, sitting at that table having those kind of discussions with these incredible men and women has been the greatest experience I've ever had.
Well, General Carlisle, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much for your impeccable service. We would like to present to you and make you officially an Airman for Life. And there's also a sticker here for your car. Now, Hawk and I are going to be neighbors, and I expect to see this sticker on the back of your car.
It'll be on the Corvette. You got it. So,
thank you so much.
Thanks,
Really
brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Very nice. Thank you. Thanks, Brad. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Great job. Okay, thank you all so much. The exhibit hall opens at 9:30, and so we're going to reset the room now for the next presentation. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to a great symposium. Thank you so much.